We begin here in New York with Donald Trump's hush money case set to resume for what could be the final day of testimony. In court, day 19 was filled with high drama, with Michael Cohen's credibility continuing to be the major focus of this trial. The defense doing its best to poke holes in Cohen's testimony during cross-examination. But the real fireworks started when the defense called Robert Costello to the stand. The criminal attorney who briefly advised Cohen complained several times during questioning, and it didn't sit well with the judge. Judge Juan Merchan cleared the courtroom before slamming Costello for his behavior. Judge Merchan also laying out a new timeline for the trial's end, with closing arguments now not set to start until May 28th, which means this case won't be in the hands of the jury until after the long holiday weekend. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard has been following the trial closely for us. He joins us from right outside the courthouse. And NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos is also here for more analysis. Vaughn, let's start with you. This was one of the more heated days in court that we've seen during the course of this trial, with Robert Costello really irritating Judge Merchan. Tell us more about him and why his testimony matters here.
Right, Christine, irritated him to the point that Judge Merchan had the assembled press and the jury leave the courtroom so that he could directly admonish the witness, Robert Costello, who he says gave him side-eye, sounded exasperated. At one point, when Judge Merchan struck something from the record, Robert Costello said, yes, strike that, to which Judge Merchan said, we need to have a discussion about proper decorum here. And he said, there is only one person here who can strike something from the record, and that is me. Robert Costello is this individual that came into the picture in 2018. Back in April of 2018 is when FBI agents raided the hotel room and the home of Michael Cohen and seized his phones and other records. And Michael Cohen turned to Robert Costello sort of as an informal, formal legal advisor at that point in time. And Robert Costello is did tell the jury that Michael Cohen at that time said that he did the Stormy Daniels payment all on his own, not at the direction of Donald Trump. The prosecution, though, has pushed back, suggesting that this was a period of time before Michael Cohen flipped on Donald Trump and began telling the truth. And so he's sort of this interesting witness, a lawyer himself, who was right there in the middle of the courtroom facing the ire of Judge Merchan. He will, we should note, Robert Costello, take the stand again this morning to continue answering more questions, Christine.
You know, Danny, should Trump's team be worried about this admonishment from the judge to this defense witness, especially considering he might be one of the few people they call?
Yes, they should, because they may not have had to call him in the first place. The defense has no burden. They don't have to prove anything. And when they start calling witnesses, it doesn't mean that the burden shifts. But spiritually, it kind of does shift. When you're the defense, unless you really need to get at some points, you don't put on a case, generally speaking. I, for example, often do not put on any case at all. I rest after the prosecution rests. And the reason for doing that is that it keeps a clean record where you can say, look, this was all their show, the prosecution, right, and they failed to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Now you may have this sort of awkward calling of one witness that could be a flaming disaster, and it's the last thing the jury hears, which is this is who the defense thought we needed to hear from. And that may not be a good look for the defense.
Danny, the prosecution's star witness is Michael Cohen, of course. And yesterday on the stand, he admitted that he stole from the Trump Organization. Does that damage the credibility, further damage the credibility of this witness? That's what the defense has been trying to do, to really damage Michael Cohen.
I thought that was a significant moment, and here's why. A lot of folks might think, well, hey, Michael Cohen already had credibility problems. He was already a convicted criminal. What's the big deal? So he stole more money. But it's inconsistent with the prosecution's theme, which is that Michael Cohen is this tragic, bumbling figure whose only sins were at the direction of the man he idolized and wrongly idolized. Now you see a different Michael Cohen. And admittedly, this came out before, but now that it's highlighted, the idea that Michael Cohen maybe isn't just some guy with misguided loyalty to Trump. He stole from Trump. He may have been just an opportunistic thief, and that the jury may really take to heart. But let's take a step back. In the grand scheme of things, when it comes to cooperating witnesses, Michael Cohen is hardly the worst cooperating witness, the worst character that you've seen. These are usually killers, people who have guns, drugs, all other kinds of criminal history, and Michael Cohen is hardly the worst of them.
Vaughn, the prosecution clashed with the defense over a photo they wanted to admit into evidence. What's the significance of this photo, and why did the prosecution think it's important to admit into evidence at this late stage in the trial?
Right, Christine, it's a photo from the night of October 24th, 2016. This was just 2 days before the wire transfer was initiated from Michael Cohen to Stormy Daniels. And on that night, Michael Cohen had testified last week that he had a phone call with Keith Schiller, the bodyguard to Donald Trump, and that Keith Schiller put Donald Trump on the phone. And it was on that call, one of many instances in which Trump articulated to him that he wanted the payment to Stormy Daniels to go through. Well, under cross-examination, the defense team for Donald Trump called into question the events of that night and why Michael Cohen was trying to get a hold of Keith Schiller. They showed him text messages that suggested the two were texting about a 14-year-old who had been prank calling Michael Cohen, and Michael Cohen wanting help from the bodyguard, Keith Schiller. And that is where this photo came out from a C-SPAN video that showed at 7:58 p.m. the night of October 24th is when Donald Trump was exiting a campaign rally stage in Tampa Bay, Florida. And you see Keith Schiller standing next to him. The prosecution suggesting that this would make sense, that Keith Schiller and Donald Trump were together because that phone call that is in question took place just 6 minutes after that photo, that screenshot took place, suggesting the two men were actually together. This was important for the prosecution to try to clean up the testimony of Michael Cohen and paint a picture for this jury that suggests that he very well could have been on that phone call with Donald Trump because, look, here they were together a mere 6 minutes before that phone call.
Fascinating. All right, Vaughn, Danny, thank you so much. All right, this morning, 5 days of national mourning have begun in Iran for President Ebrahim Raisi, who died along with the foreign minister and several other Iranian officials in a helicopter crash on Sunday. Thousands of mourners gathered in northwestern Iran to witness the funeral procession for the divisive leader. NBC's chief international correspondent Keir Simmons has the latest.
Good morning. Well, we are seeing incredibly impactful images from the city of Tabriz in Iran. That is the city that is closest to the place where the crash happened. Huge numbers of Iranians on the streets holding pictures of the late president and reaching out to try and touch the coffin of Ebrahim Raisi and the other officials who were killed in that helicopter crash. The coffin's on board a truck, slow moving through the crowds. That's just the beginning of the funeral, which will be held tomorrow in Tehran. The bodies move tonight. And then for President Raisi going on to his home city, his hometown, to end this long, many days of mourning. And at the same time, what you're not seeing in those pictures are the critics of the Iranian regime for arresting and executing dissidents, for arresting journalists, for crushing dissent and protests, including just 2 years ago, those protests in favor of women's rights. Those people's voices are being heard in small celebrations outside of Iranian embassies around the world, and heard in the words of the US State Department sending condolences, but at the same time also saying that those condolences go to the Iranian people and support for those who fight for freedom in Iran. So something of a split screen. We have seen messages of condolence from Gulf nations here, for example. That suggests that potentially there's room for diplomacy. Also heard from the US that Iran reached out for help in the early hours after the crash. At the same time, hearing from the Kremlin that President Putin spoke to the new president, who they are emphasizing he has met many times. That will not be welcome in Washington.
All right, Keir, thank you so much for that. And now to the latest on the war in Gaza. Top Israeli and Hamas leaders are fiercely rejecting accusations of war crimes from the world's top criminal court. Yesterday, the International Criminal Court in The Hague announced it is seeking arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Hamas leaders, and others for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. NBC News International correspondent Ralph Sanchez is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
What a travesty of justice. What a disgrace.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denouncing the International Criminal Court after its prosecutor accused him of war crimes in Gaza and called for a global warrant for his arrest. The prosecutor also seeking to arrest Israel's defense minister and the three top leaders of Hamas's military and political wings. Israel accused of deliberately starving civilians in Gaza by choking off food supplies. Prosecutor Karim Khan also says Israel intentionally targeted civilians.
These crimes were committed in the context of the ongoing armed conflict and as part of a widespread and systematic attack against the civilian population of Gaza.
Netanyahu denying the charges.
Mr. Khan creates a twisted and false moral equivalence between the leaders of Israel and the henchmen of Hamas. This is like creating a moral equivalence after September 11th between President Bush and Osama bin Laden.
President Biden calling the prosecutor's move outrageous.
Let me be clear. We reject the ICC's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders.
Hamas accused of atrocities during the October 7th terror attack and beyond. Allegations including murder, rape, torture, and hostage-taking.
Hostages must be released immediately.
Hamas denies committing war crimes as the wheels of international justice begin to turn.
If ICC judges approve the warrants, Netanyahu could face arrest in any nation that's party to the court, including most of Europe. Back to you.
All right, Ralph Sanchez, thank you so much. Let's talk more about this with Hagar Shamali. She's the former NSC director for Syria and Lebanon and the host of Oh My World on YouTube. Hagar, thank you for being here this morning. Good morning. So this ICC request for an arrest warrant for Israel's prime minister and defense minister, it's seen as really a watershed moment here. There have been people who've been calling for this for years, really, to hold allies of the West accountable. They say it's overdue. And a leading Israeli human rights organization said this: the era of impunity for Israeli decision makers is over. How damaging is this for Israel?
Well, it goes two ways. On one hand, any kind of statement of this kind, any kind of action from the International Criminal Court is typically deemed quite serious. It's not something to poo-poo. I mean, this is something when I was in the U.S. government, even if the U.S. is not a party to the International Criminal Court, we are not a member of it. Israel's not a member of it, by the way, either. So even though whatever comes out of the court doesn't hold legal precedent here or legal weight here, we still used to work with the International Criminal Court to get, things worked against President Putin and President Assad of Syria, for example. So it is something very serious. That said, it's not going to carry much weight inside Israel if they are not a member. It means that anything, if they issue an arrest warrant, they're not going to recognize that, and they're not going to arrest Netanyahu. However, that does mean that the defense minister and the prime minister are not going to be able to travel, as Ralph mentioned, to all these countries that are a member. There are 125 countries that are a member of the International Criminal Court.
Does it affect any kind of negotiations for ceasefire, for returning of hostages? Does it have any effect on that at all, you think?
Well, Secretary Blinken said it would. I'm not sure I see that as much. I think I see that it's very clear that the Israeli government is upset about this. When we had rumors of it beforehand, Netanyahu was trying to plead with the U.S. government to try and do something. I don't believe that's something the U.S. government could try to stop in its tracks. Yes, we've seen now Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill say that they want to sanction the International Criminal Court and its leaders. It's an odd use of sanctions. As someone I can tell you, worked in sanctions a long time, but it's not going to change their process or their mechanism of their behavior. But that said, I don't see it's only going to upset them. The talks on the ceasefire, as it is, are very difficult and tenuous. I don't think that this is going to be the thing that messes them up.
You mentioned Presidents Putin and Assad. Is there a risk here that the U.S. and President Biden denounced this ICC call? So is there, does the U.S. look like it's talking out of both sides of its mouth here?
Well, the thing on the U.S. side, I understand where the U.S. is coming from, because the tradition at the ICC is that they don't tend to pursue these types of moves against countries that have democratic processes where they can hold individuals accountable for whatever the situation is, whether it's atrocities or war crimes and such. And so it breaks that tradition on one hand. And that's something the U.S. government, under every administration, has been very against when the ICC has pursued moves of that kind. But I do agree that the equivalence with Hamas, the timing of it to do both of them, is odd in my view when you look at the history and pattern of the ICC and the moves they've taken and those that they have not taken. For example, they did not pursue anything against Saudi Arabia for the significant humanitarian crisis it caused in Yemen. And so when you see this one, you start to question, well, why the equivalence? And so I understand where the U.S. administration is coming from on that.
Let's turn now to Iran, which is holding a funeral and days of mourning here for its president, who died in a helicopter crash here, and the State Department issuing condolences. I'm wondering what you think think is going on behind the scenes here between the U.S. and Iran and that relationship, and what kind of conversations are happening at the highest levels in the U.S. about this?
Yeah, I didn't love the condolences. I'm not going to lie to you, but having been on the other side, I understand protocol. I understand protocol. I find Iran to be a bit separate because we have basically labeled their government as a sponsor of terrorism. We have labeled their government as a sponsor of terrorism, and therefore most of their leaders as specially designated terrorists. And so I thought that it might have gone a little far in my view, because what it shows is that, as with all diplomacy, diplomacy includes dealing with unsavory characters. Understood. But there is a difference when you're talking about a government that you've labeled as terrorist. And to me, it felt like it was keeping a little bit of a cracked window, either for future negotiations or to communicate to the Iranian people who aren't expressing joy and relief at his death.
Exactly. All right. And so nice to see you, Hagar Shamali. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, tens of thousands of people in Texas remain without power this morning, days after powerful storms caused widespread damage and brought down power lines. An eighth person in the Houston area has died as a result of the storms. That's according to the city's fire department. More severe weather is in the forecast today across the U.S. High temperatures and rising heat indexes expected. Meteorologist Angie Lassman will have the details in a moment. But first, NBC News correspondent Kathy Park joins us from Houston with the latest. Kathy, good morning. What are you seeing on the ground? The latest on the ground is as so many people are in the dark this morning.
Hey, Christine, good morning to you. That's absolutely right. The damage, as you can see behind me, is quite expansive. In this one particular neighborhood, the debris really is piling up. The city of Houston, they've done a really good job kind of getting everything back in order, but homeowners, they still have a lot of work ahead. At last check, roughly 150,000 customers are still without power. CenterPoint Energy, which is a major power company here in Houston, they say that the goal is to get a substantial number of customers restored by Wednesday. As of last night, they had about 750,000 people back online, but they still have tens of thousands to go. But you mentioned the heat, the humidity. It's going to be hot here in Houston. It's going to be in the 90s today. It will stay in the 90s pretty much every day for the entirety of the week. So it's going to be a stifling weather pattern, and they're going to be dealing with a lot of this for the next couple of days. And homeowners, they're going to be challenged with, no power, no AC. So that is something that the power company is trying to do quickly, to work quickly at an urgent pace to kind of get everyone back online.
I know that the heat and humidity in the Houston area are expected to continue today. What are some of the challenges for crews as this cleanup continues and the utilities are trying to get the lights and the air conditioning back on?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, Christine, is just kind of maneuvering through all the debris that is piling up. They said that they're working with some really difficult working conditions because you see a lot of these tree limbs are still kind of blocking some of these homes, also roadways as well. So they're working with thousands of mutual assistance workers to kind of cut through the vegetation so that the utility crews can kind of stay on track.
And how's the city of Houston helping out people in need today?
So as quickly as they realize that it's going to be extremely hot and dangerous, cooling centers were opened up throughout the city of Houston. Also, emergency food distribution centers were opened up as well. In fact, our colleague Priscilla Thompson was at a location yesterday, and she was speaking to one of the organizers, and she told her that, the essential supplies, the food, the ice, the water, they actually ran out in a matter of hours. So the demand is there as people continue to kind of swelter in this heat with no power and no AC.
All right, Kathy Park, thank you so much. The threat continues as millions are under severe weather alerts in the Midwest this morning. Meteorologist Angie Lassman is tracking everything for us. Good morning, Angie.
Good morning, Christine. You're exactly right. No rest for the weary. More severe storm potential today across a good chunk of the country, specifically the Midwest. And we've already ramped things up this morning with some of these lines of thunderstorms prompting these severe thunderstorm watches, severe thunderstorm warnings earlier this morning. We saw tornado watches already issued, and we'll likely see more where that came from here as the day goes on. You can see the heavy rain that we're also tracking with this, and all of those impacts are going to be on the table from now through the rest of our day, and then we'll kind of have a repeat performance in a different area of the country as we get into tomorrow. So let's time all that out for you. Here's today into tonight. Notice that really strong line of thunderstorms. This is going to work quickly across the Midwest, but we do have that moderate risk. So the higher risk that we're watching is going to be centered across Iowa, stretching into Illinois, into Missouri, and into parts of Wisconsin. But that doesn't mean that elsewhere, from basically Michigan down down south and out towards Nebraska that we couldn't see some of these stronger storms. But the greatest chance is going to be places like Des Moines, Davenport, and Kirksville. Those wind gusts upwards of 90 miles per hour are possible. We'll see hail upwards of 2 inches in diameter, and we'll also see the chance for a couple of strong tornadoes. We're talking EF2 or higher. That same bullseye area that I mentioned, Des Moines, Davenport, and Kirksville, all included in that. But if you live in Green Bay, Chicago, stretching down to Springfield, out towards Omaha, Minneapolis, all of those locations have the potential to see some of these strong storms and tornadoes. So all of those impacts are going to be on the table. And tomorrow, remember I said we have a different section of the country. That's going to be Texas to Ohio that sees, again, a potential for some severe storms. All of the impacts are going to be on the table, along with the potential to see some really heavy rainfall. And because of that, the flood alerts are already up. 8 million people included in this. You can see how expansive they are, including major cities of Des Moines, Minneapolis, Omaha, all of those locations expecting to get really a good dose of rain over the next couple of days. Today's flash flood risk centered from Duluth, Minneapolis, and down towards Waterloo, Chicago, and Green Bay included in that as well. So watch for that here as we gear up for another 1 to maybe 3 inches in some spots. I think widespread amounts. The farther south you go to the areas that we're going to be watching tomorrow to have some impacts as far as severe weather, that's where we'll see the higher amounts of rainfall accumulation. So 1 to 3 inches, Christine, potentially higher than that. So really, all of this is on the table, and we know how warm it is in these areas as well. So just a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, no rest for the weary. You
rest
said
for
it
the weary.
at the top, and it remains. Thank you so much, Angie.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.